Hey y'all. First, I want to say thanks for having me up here. I always love talking to groups like this. It's cool that you guys are kind of getting together and having these spaces to talk about these kind of issues and and show projects off, things like that. I like what the club is doing. It's pretty awesome. I have to give disclaimer first that anything I say is not to be considered legal advice unless I'm actually your attorney. So unless I send you an engagement letter and you pay me, it's not legal advice. So don't sue me for something. And I'm coming at this as a U.S. practitioner. So lots of the concepts I'll be talking about are going to be pretty common, like copyright, trademark, things like that. The difference between U.S. and European law is pretty minimal, and we have treaties in place between the countries that a U.S. Trademark is usually good in European countries, depending on the type of issue, and copyright same way. So anything I talk about on those issues is going to be based on U.S. knowledge, but it should be pretty applicable for the kind of, I know, primarily German group here and lots of Europeans in this group. So the first question I was given is where the main legal issues around creating, minting, and selling NFTs. And I think there's mainly two big issues. So the first one is intellectual property. You guys all know kind of the difference between like what Board Ape did as far as like giving away the intellectual property. If you own a Board Ape, you can license that Board Ape out to be sold on a T-shirt, or put T-shirts in Walmart with your Board Ape on it, or license it out to a comic book or a TV show or anything like that. So that's one form of intellectual property. And then on kind of the opposite side of things, you see like Stoner Cats or Adidas with their drops, where they're not giving away any of the commercial rights, but you're still allowed to use them. So same thing as if you bought a T-shirt in a store or a shoe in a store, where you can wear it, you can post it, you can flex it, you can resell it, but you can't go out to a shoe manufacturer and have someone recreate it. Same thing, you can't have it digitally recreated and sell or license it. So that's the first major issue. And then the second major issue is consumer protection, which is kind of what we're focusing on today when it comes to like theft in the space or rugs or things like that. And that's kind of an underdeveloped area right now. Everyone kind of thinks of NFTs as the wild, wild west, which is true to an extent, but as we see the rise in people using know your customer exchanges, you're also going to see a lot rise of lawsuits. So we can track where the money goes through know your customer exchanges. So when people do a rug, when people say, "Here's this NFT project," and make $2 million off minting, and then just abandon a project completely without fulfilling their promises, there's going to be lawsuits, and those lawsuits are going to be against actual individuals. And so I know that the main issue with that is just going to be the fact that NFTs are so international. Like, I'm talking to a club that's based out of Berlin, lots of Berlin residents. Obviously, NFTs are biggest right now as far as market size in the US, but Australia has a very large contingent. Asia is starting to get into the market quite a bit. South America, same thing. So uh, the biggest issue is going to be kind of using international law and kind of having attorneys in various jurisdictions that can handle these issues that pop up when it comes to consumer protection, when it comes to people rugging or stealing NFTs. So, um, yeah, the other question was main types of scams that people who are new to NFTs can fall into. And by the way, if you guys have any questions, you want follow up or something like that, I'm looking at the whiteboard. So just type in there, and I'll be able to fill you in on anything if I'm not being clear on something. But the scams we're seeing right now, like I said, twofold. One is kind of the rug. So a project will come out of nowhere with usually like a Twitter account they bought or a Discord they bought with a ton of followers in it, a ton of members in it. So it looks legit. And then you mint from it, and there's people active pre-mint telling you all this details and all that. But then you mint, and the project just goes away. The developers take all the money out of the wallet. It gets distributed to developers. They leave, and there's nothing left in there. So, trying to think of one recently. So recently, it's coming back. Yeti. I forget the name, Super Yeti, I want to say, was one of those projects where it died. Actually, the developers kind of left, and now the community has kind of restarted it, so it's not completely worthless. But uh, Bones, there's something other Bones too, same thing, where the developers promise, all right, here's what we're going to give. We're going to give this NFT, but on top of that, there's all this utility. We're going to have merch drops. We're going to have a game. We're going to do X, Y, and Z, and they just don't give that. So every country, United States has state by state, but every country pretty much has consumer protection laws, which say that if you sell a can of Coca-Cola and the can is actually empty, like that, you can if they're that's how class actions happen, where they're doing something on a regular basis that isn't right. Um, the same thing is going to happen with NFTs. I wrote an article that was focused on US law, but they're going to run into an issue where these developers, even if they're not docs, they can be traced back to know your customer exchanges. Like, not a whole lot of people in the space are being savvy enough, except for the scammers, to really to hide their assets in a way any different than you can hide assets in the US in the international banking system. Like, yeah, you can move funds around and you can be creative with it, but at the end of the day, you have to get actual cash out to use, and to do that, most places are requiring know your customer, or requiring to know your name, your social security number, your details. So that's going to be a big thing. They're going to be people that are suing over rugs and things like that. So before I move on to the next one, I saw a question scammer about seed phrase. I'll definitely do that. I'll definitely talk about what happens with the other scam too. So the other scam is, yeah, a Discord message, or a Twitter message. Hopefully, you guys all know, if you use the magic word MetaMask or seed phrase or anything like that on Twitter, you'll get about 17 bots responding with a link saying they're MetaMask support, and email them, and or to click on a link, and they'll help you with your problem. Uh, Obviously, don't click on anything. Don't click on any messages, any links sent to you on Discord. Don't click on any links on Twitter. Don't do anything like that, because there's two ways people get into your wallet. Uh, the first one is giving away your seed phrase. Hopefully, you guys all know, don't ever give away your seed phrase. Don't ever, like, take your steps to be protecting your wallets. Do have a cold storage wallet for your most valuable assets that you don't ever use. Mint from a hot wallet that, if it's ever compromised for whatever reason and it's drained, it's not the end of the world. You're not gonna lose everything you ever invested in there. Um, but so that's the first step, is do that. And I wrote an article. I think there was a link to it provided before. If not, I'll put in the whiteboard after I'm done talking a little bit about what happens. First of all, web security, how you can be more secure with your wallet and everything, and also what happens next. So, and the US, if you buy stolen goods, doesn't matter if you knew they were stolen or not. Depending on the jurisdiction, you might have to give them back, without to give it back to the rightful owner, without any kind of recourse against the owner. You're stuck going after a scammer. So, for example, if your wallet is compromised and a scammer accepts some bot offer for a board ape for 25% of its value, uh, and then it takes a WETH out of your account, and so you don't have the money for that purchase, and you don't have the ape anymore. In the US, whoever bought that ape, if they're contacted by the person who had it stolen from them, they could be forced to return it, and then they're stuck going after that scammer who took the WETH. It's just a bad situation, because you're not going to be able to find that scammer. Most of the people who are doing those kind of scams are usually being sophisticated enough that they're not using the know your customer exchanges like we talked about. It's not so required yet that they have to. So uh, that gives you two issues. One, uh, if you're putting in offers for something that's well below floor, and you end up buying something that was stolen just from someone accepting a bid, uh, know that's a risk you're taking by putting in that offer, by having these offers that are open for extended periods of time. Uh, know that if you are buying something that ends up being stolen, you could be forced to return it and then be out your money. Um, Also, as far as the person who had it stolen from them, know that it's not always gone. And so what I advise, I've had a few people that I've helped out in the U.S. for this when they had their things stolen, and what I always advise is to pay if you can, if you have the means to, pay the purchase price back to the person who bought it, because they're just as much a victim as you are lots of times, uh, and then you get it back without having to ever involve any kind of authorities, without any kind of legal process, anything like that. You're out 25% of the value, but not 100% of the value. So learn your lesson that way and be safe next time. But that's a lesson for everybody. Um, so if you ever get your thing stolen, the first thing I would say is to contact an attorney uh, who can help you out in whatever jurisdiction you're in, um, and help use them to work through law enforcement. So lots of times these people wouldn't be able to caught right now, or they wouldn't be able to be caught for one scam, but between the linking of wallets for 17 different scams, you can actually use online forensics, to determine who that person is, even if they are being very cautious about hiding their identity, just because they're going to have to use common wallets at some point. They're going to have to, there's going to be a group of transactions you're able to track down. So, uh, that's the biggest issue right there when it comes to scams. Um, how to make sure you don't fall victims of scams is just going to be I mean, you have to be careful. I mean, I think in that article I linked a long Twitter feed from some punk that goes through wallet security. Things like never giving away your seed phrase ever, ever, ever. Never sharing your screen with anybody. Don't go to Discord servers or major Discord servers like MetaMask Discord servers or the project Discord servers, help pages, and ask for help through there, because there's scammers waiting in there that will pose as an admin and reach out to you. Same thing on Twitter. Never respond to anything on Twitter. The two main steps you always want to do is have a hot wallet and a cold wallet. So I have personally probably like 6 wallets that get used on a semi-regular basis. There's one main hot wallet which I do most of my transactions through. Uh, there's a secondary hot wallet where if the transaction looks a little bit, I'm not sure about it. Or I haven't vetted it. I don't know anybody who's looked at the contract yet. That's where I keep a very, very small amount of liquidity and just some worthless assets, so that if that wallet gets compromised, if I lose everything in there, whatever, it's no big deal. And then the cold storage wallet also necessary. So there's two different ways you can do that. You can have a ledger or a typical any of those cold storage wallets. The only issue with those is that some assets can't be transferred to them. So, for example, I'm big into Zrun. On Polygon assets, lots of times they can't be, or these side chains. I don't know about Sol or Cardano, any of these side chain or layer two assets might not be compatible with those wallets. Obviously, any kind of ETH should be good, or any kind of ERC 721 or any ERC based NFT, you should be good, but they're not always available. So, what I recommend for any of my clients is to have a separate laptop. Go buy a $150 laptop, $200 laptop that costs as much as a Ledger or Nano or any of those kind of things. And literally the only thing you do on it is you download a separate MetaMask wallet on there, and you don't use it for anything else. You don't use Twitter, you don't use Discord, you don't download anything. You keep it disconnected from the internet unless you're actively using it to send something on there. And then you can send your most high value assets to that essentially laptop that's air gapped for 99% of the time, uh, and is only used for that. So you won't be vulnerable if you do click on a link in a moment of weakness, or if somebody gets a hold of your screen from a Discord because you thought it was tech support, or there's never a chance for you to give away your seed phrase for that one. So that's what I recommend is just buy a cheap laptop, uh, download MetaMask onto the internet, whatever browser you're using on there, a separate MetaMask with a separate seed phrase and separate account information, and literally only use it to send and receive NFTs. Don't even use it for OpenSea selling. Don't ever use it back and forth. Um, so that's the most secure way you can do that for your high value assets. For other assets that's not worth sending, just be careful. Be careful with your hot wallet. Be careful with like don't just mint because a Discord said it's a surprise mint is going on. That just happened recently with I forget the name of the project, but the Discord got hacked, and in the announcement section it says we're doing a surprise mint. Everyone, and then lots of people ended up minting for point one, and luckily that wasn't a malicious contract where they got access to the wallet that could have been much worse. But all these people were out point one because the Discord got hacked and people just aped into it without actually doing any kind of research. Yeah, will you miss out on some things that day? Maybe. I mean, we all know the space. We all know there's opportunities that pop up that are short term that you have to jump into quicker than you'd like to, maybe. Um, and that's why you have for things like that. That's why you have the other hot wallet. You have the other wallet that if it's something that you haven't had time to vet, you haven't had time to do your own research into, you don't know if it's safe, but you think it's a good opportunity. Have that separate, completely separate wallet from where you have most of your transactions or where you keep your mid-range assets, uh, and uh, and do it that way. So just there's everybody makes mistakes. You see all the time all these people with board apes who are otherwise very crypto savvy who have a moment of weakness and just make a mistake, click on the wrong link or do something wrong. It happens to literally the best of people. And if you're in this space long enough, if it doesn't happen to you, it will happen to someone you personally know. So lots of what I'm advising is just to minimize the damage for when that does eventually happen to either you or someone you know. Make sure that they don't get your assets that are worth 3, 4, 5 ETH. If they end up getting a bunch of things that are worth zero point zero 0.03 and they sell those, or if they end up getting the liquidity that you had, it's fine. You can overcome that. You can get back as long as you're making sure that most of your liquidity is not in an area that you can ever get to. So cold storage wallet or Coinbase, where you have a dual factor authorizations or things like that are a good way to keep those kind of the liquidity safe, and then a cold storage wallet for your actual NFTs. Um, how do you protect yourself legally when your scam happens? Like I said, talk to a local attorney. Every jurisdiction is a little bit different, um, and a big part of it is going to be: is it even worth it going after it? Did you lose 30K, 40K? Uh, that's it's worth hiring and it's spending $3,000 on an attorney to get that back, get some percentage of that back. Or did you lose $1,000, $2,000, where it's just not going to be worth it, and you just have to kind of uh, take your loss and use it as a lesson. If it is a major break. If you lose a board ape, or you lose a crypto punk, or you lose something that has gone up in value an insane amount, then it's worth talking to an attorney and seeing if they can negotiate with whoever bought it to have an applicable way to get it back that you don't even have to involve the authorities. You don't have to sue anybody. You just say, "Hey, I fucked up by letting my get taken. You fucked up by buying something that was stolen. Let's figure out a way to make this right." and that's the way to go. But I do recommend that people start involving authorities, whether that be, I mean, here we have the FBI, where I've worked with a few times where they haven't been able to recover anything yet, but they have people's wallet information, they have transaction information, so that when this does happen for the fifth time or sixth time, and the person who the scammer fucks up and uses the wrong wallet that has know your customer information, that person can be caught and the assets can be given back to the rightful owners. The liquidity that they stole, any kind of remaining NFTs that they have, things like that. So involve authorities. Don't be afraid to involve the law, even if it doesn't help you right now. It could be someday in the future that person gets caught and you can be made whole because there's a record of you being one of the people scammed, as opposed to it just being a random wallet address that they can't ever track down. So, uh, says you have a lot of artists in this community. Is there a risk that artists can't fulfill a promise? Is that and get targeted to do this? Is there a way to protect yourself from this? So, as artists, um, then creators of projects, you want to be careful. You don't want to be making promises that you can't deliver on. You want to make sure that anything you promise, especially in the U.S., if you're promising to U.S. based people, we have consumer protection laws. So if you promise a comic book and the comic book never happens, then you could find yourself being sued. Um, for class action or anything else like that. That hasn't happened yet. I don't think it's going to happen for in the 2022 maybe, but 2023, 2024, I see that being a major issue that people run into. So just make sure, be careful with your roadmaps. Don't make a roadmap where you can't deliver. It's better to under promise and over deliver than the reverse, both from a uh, giving to the community standpoint and growing a good community within your project standpoint, and also from a legal standpoint. I mean, look what Board Apes did. Board Apes never promised that they were going to do a mutant ape drop or a dog drop or anything else until it was actually in the works. Until they actually knew that was actually going to happen. The ape coin wasn't confirmed until they had their ducks in a row and I talked to lawyers and had the securities issues that come with it lined up. So same with any kind of art. Don't if you have a whether it is a 10K profile picture project or a 100 one of one photography project, um, be careful. Don't promise a DAO if you don't have the technology in place and you don't have the legalities in place to actually give the person a DAO. Don't promise anything that you can't do. And for artists, especially, you want to make sure that you know what you're giving away. Typically, with an art sale, you're not giving away copyright rights. You're not giving away any intellectual property. All you're giving away essentially is the right to display and personal use. Um, so have a talk with an attorney. Figure out, do I want to give away copyright rights? Do I Because you when you do that, you lose a little bit of control over your artistic vision. Do I want to make this a Creative Commons project where there are no copyright rights anymore over this kind of thing? There's pros and cons with that. I mean, the pros is that you can the community is left open to do whatever they want with it and spread the good word of your project, but also you as the artist have no control over the direction of the project anymore. It's released to the world, and that project, the artistic side of that project can go any direction. So figure out if you want to give away base intellectual property rights, which is, or you want to give away that, or somewhere in between. You can do it where you can say, all right, a person can sell up to $100,000 and commercialize their individual NFT, but anything more than that, they have to get approval from me. I've done those all the time. Limited licenses, limited non-exclusive licenses to copyright issues. So um, just know that as an artist, just know that you have options. You don't have to give away everything. You can give away everything. You can give it to your community. You can give it to the world. You're the artist. You're the creator. You have complete control over that. So, and don't be afraid to go after people who are infringing on your stuff. If you see an OpenSea account that's just stealing your work, report them. If you know somebody that is actually actively infringing on your copyright, and you can trace down who the person is, sue them like you would sue anybody else. If they stole your art and put it on a billboard or sold it to Target to use on prints or things like that, you would sue 'em in that situation. There should be no difference in NFTs. If someone's trying to make commercial gain off of your art without your permission, then you have remedies available to you. So, seems like a good time to check out the whiteboard, see if people are asking any questions. All right. So first, about intellectual property, photographs and portraits of celebrities. Can they become an NFT? Yes, if you if you are doing a photography of a celebrity, obviously any kind of photography work of celebrities, you're going to have an agreement with the person, whether it be a model, it just doesn't even have to be a celebrity, any kind of model. Um, there's usually an agreement in place between the model and the photographer on exactly what rights are coming with that photography. Usually, the photographer keeps complete rights, but the model has some kind of right of refusal or something like that. So just follow the terms of that. If you're like taking photographs of a celebrity like on the street or something like that and using their name, image, likeness, that comes into a different frame. There's a different set of laws for that. You see that with like tabloids and things like that. How you can profit off of that. So I would recommend you talk to a local attorney for that, just to figure out what your local laws are for use of a person's image without their prior consent. But if you are a photographer and you're taking images with models, you should have a licensing agreement set up. You should have an agreement with the model set up to make sure that everything is above board and everything is kosher, so that that person doesn't come back later on and come after you. So second question: if scammers get your seed phrase and or you know your customer info, can you do anything to avoid more damages? I think I answered that on the. I mean, if as soon as if you find out that if you are in a moment of weakness and you click on a bad link or you never give you seed phrase. There's no reason to ever, ever, ever. No one ever needs your seed phrase except for you. Ever. Do not give your seed phrase to anybody. Do not save your seed phrase online. Do not put it on a Word document. Write it down in a hard copy. Put it in two different secure locations, so that if the fire takes it, then you still have the information. But never give your seed phrase. But as far as like avoiding more damages, so you find out and you catch it in time, having another wallet set up that you can transfer things, high value things to, and transfer assets to, and things like that, is a good thing. Keeping an eye on it so that because the scammer is also going to need to have ETH in that account to do transaction fees. So as soon as they put any kind of ETH in that, like keep an eye on the account until all your stuff is gone. Is transferred to a safe place and making sure if they put any money in it, you're draining it immediately, things like that. Um, and then, like I said, talking to attorney and seeing if you can contact any kind of person who had a offer accepted on it, on something, um, and seeing if you can negotiate a way to get that return so that the person isn't out completely their cost, but you can also get your asset back for a reasonable price. How do you actually go about suing for damages? The local police would be able to do anything in this ecosystem. Local police, it depends on the jurisdiction you're in. If you're in like New York or Berlin or things like that, I expect there would be a crimes division that you'd be able to go to that would be helpful. The problem is the person who actually stole it is not in your jurisdiction. The chances of the person who scammed someone who scammed a Berlin native actually also being in Germany is pretty slim. So yes, you can go to local police, but I would recommend a federal or Interpol or some other agency that any kind of local attorney will be able to help you find out the right agency to go to. Like here in the US, almost always I go through the Southern District of Illinois because they have a pretty good cyber crimes division in federal district. So I go through the FBI through the Southern District of Illinois, as opposed to Eastern District of Missouri, which is a little bit less sophisticated. Same thing with Northern District of Illinois is a good spot to go to as well. But the big thing is actually just going to be having an attorney and making sure that they're helping you negotiate with the buyer, track down the buyer, because they're the ones who are they're the ones who probably aren't being as diligent about know your customer, and you can probably find someone that can do online forensics and track them down, and then you can negotiate the return of your stuff. So again, just know everything you say could be used in the court of law. So don't f them. Don't say anything that you don't want in front of a jury, or you don't want someone else seeing. Don't, like, be cool. I know it's a time when tempers run high, but try and be as reasonable as possible and try and negotiate. Uh, which jurisdiction were responsible? So wherever your stuff was stolen, your local jurisdiction would be the primary jurisdiction, that is responsible for assisting with that. So if you're in Berlin, the local Berlin and Berlin federal authorities would be the best ones to go to, but they'd work with other jurisdictions to try and help out. Uh, Starting with authorities, how would you go about legalities as a project creator if something went terribly wrong? What can you do as a project to protect yourself? Not really sure what the question is for that. If you can do some clarification on that, let me know as far as like project creator being scammed. Uh, if maybe you're talking about a co-developer or something like that, in which case use contracts. Everybody in this space seems to think that handshake deals are good enough, or deals over Discord messages or Twitter messages are good enough. No. Use a formal legal contract. If there's somebody that is not willing to be doxxed, then have them put up collateral. Have them put up something that if they end up taking from you, you have recourse against them, um, or get their actual identity. I mean, you wouldn't do that in business. You wouldn't pay a contractor to uh, build a new kitchen for you without a contract in place. You wouldn't just, or without knowing their name or where they're located or who they are. You wouldn't just say, "Hey, stranger, here's $40,000. Build this kitchen for me. Thanks, handshake." Like, you have contracts in place for that. There should be just no different in NFTs, anything like that. You should use an attorney, get a contract, things like that. Um, can touch briefly aware of NFT contracts. People are saying stay away from OpenSea contracts, for example. So there's a difference between a NFT, what you're minting from, contract, and a legal contract. So an NFT contract should be looked at more as a receipt. All it is, it's a automated function that says if X then Y. If you pay zero point 0.3 ETH, then I send you this NFT. Or if you do X, then I do Y. It's not a legal agreement. It's not saying anything. The legal agreement is in what is being promised on the Discord, what is being promised in terms and conditions. Um, that's what the actual legal agreement is saying. If someone says on the Discord, the thing I'm selling, this 10,000 project, uh, 10,000 avatar project, and we're doing a whitelist, and people in whitelist can pay zero point 0.3 ETH for it. Um, that's the contract. That's the legal contract. That's the if you pay zero point 0.3 and they don't give you the NFT, then the legal contract is in what they're saying. The NFT contract, the smart contract, is completely different. As far as stay away from OpenSea contracts, um, I know lots of artists don't like to use OpenSea just because it is a centralized database. So if you are minting on OpenSea your project, I know they have a minting function on there where you can create your own on OpenSea. But that token standard, and I'm not a Solidity developer, so everything I'm saying right now is just from my very basic understanding of it. But everything you meant on there is actually stored on OpenSea servers. It's not stored on the Ethereum blockchain. So if the OpenSea servers for some reason were to go down, then what you minted isn't necessarily preserved on the Ethereum blockchain in the same way that you can mint through other servers, like I think Rarible or some other one. So Foundation is a good one too. I know lots of people use that for photography and for artists that don't have a Solidity. It doesn't make sense for them to hire their own Solidity developer. um, those would be the ones I would kind of look to go to, or just use OpenSea. I mean, it's not. It just know that there's going to be certain centralized elements to that. You saw that. I think it was NFTO, the teddy bear project that was around for a little bit. They originally minted on OpenSea, and they were originally that. And then when they wanted to transfer it over to a more decentralized data, a new, more decentralized, more standard uh, contract, they had to do exchange. It was a big pain in the ass. So just know that like look into the various minting options, and if it makes sense for you, hire a Solidity developer who can make your own contract, or you can use OpenSea's contracts. Nothing wrong with them from a standpoint, but just know that. Uh, let's see. As an example, create a 10K. Your smart contract has a fault, and some people NFTs have been stolen from that. They can sue you fully responsible. Okay, so I don't know. I don't know an example of something where there's a 10K collection where the smart contract was somehow someone is able to steal something that someone else minted. I've seen smart contracts where it was a flaw where they people got things for free when they weren't supposed to, or things like that. And the issue as the creator at that point is you'd have to probably retract them and do the whole process again and refund the money. But as far as like being able to, like, you sell somebody a bored ape, and because there's something in the original minting smart contract, that bored ape can be stolen by someone else. I haven't seen that. I don't think that's something that comes up really. So um unless if you can point me an example, I'm happy to look at it, but, I just don't see that as something that really has happened, that I'm aware of. I've only seen it at where the developers are the ones being screwed because they have a messed up contract where they thought they were selling things for point 0.1, and really if you mint it directly from the contract, you get it for point 0.01 or something like that, which is, I mean, depending on the s the ERC token that you're using, you might be able to just still have access to metadata and make that NFT worthless, or you might not. I don't know. Um, how do you see the case of the lawsuit against Quentin Tarantino? I mean that's interesting, just because it's the first major copyright litigation going on in the space. Uh, the fact that they didn't do a preliminary injunction or a temporary restraining order is telling on what Merrimax thinks of their case. They obviously think it's a pretty weak case if that's the case, because otherwise they would put that in. Because once something in the blockchain, it's gone. But also, on the other side of things, I wouldn't buy that. I wouldn't buy that NFT, just because if you buy something that is copyrighted, that is a violation of the copyright, then you can't sell it, because if you sell it, you're open to damages up to $150,000. If you thought it's totally okay to buy and sell. I did an article on this regarding the crypto funks and uh, I don't know, fast food punks and all those kind of knockoffs where um, if you're buying something that's a copyright violation, you're selling it, you could be held personally at damage to the copyright holder. Um, and then best case scenario, if they win, then they just take it back from you, so you're out whatever you invested. So if you see there's an issue with copyright, there's a potential this is a knockoff, this is an obvious fraud. This is somebody else's work being passed off as their own. No matter how lucrative it looks, I personally stay away, just because I use know your customer exchanges. I don't hide who I really am. I'm not that way. So that's not how my digital footprint is. So if I buy that, they can find me pretty easily and sue me for up to, in the US, $150,000. So um it's just not worth it for me personally. So just know that, I mean, and some people it is. Some people think CryptoPunk is never actually going to sue anybody over this because it's decentralized and Web3, and their people wouldn't like that, and blah 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 blah. And they might be right. Might be missing out on tons of profit because of that. But it's just the risk reward is the 0.03 ETH gain worth potentially $150,000 in damages. Nah, not for me. How do you determine jurisdiction? A photograph is made in a country, North America, about a celebrity living in another country, US, and the NFT is sold in another country, Europe. So at least in the US, and this varies from country, copyright law varies from country to country. But in the US, the place where the work was created is generally the law that governs. So in this case, if photograph is made in US, the photograph is taken in the US, that's the general governing law that would govern that. If it was photographed in Canada, that would be it. If it was photographed in Japan, that would be it. That's generally how it works. It's where the piece of art was made. Obviously, there's various consumer protection laws when it comes to where the person is being sold information or being sold a piece of work. So if you sell a photograph to somebody in Japan, then typically the Japanese law, as far as consumer protection laws and things like that, would govern. So hopefully that answers it. Um, am I, as a developer, responsible for fraud that's done with my code? I think you're probably good. I don't. I mean, as long as you're not the one perpetuating any fraud or things like that, or you're not giving code that is known to be, you're not giving malicious code. You're not programming something that you know is going to be used for fraud. Then no. If someone else takes your code and turns it and edits it to make it malicious, I don't see any kind of legal responsibility for that. And then last one, can the creator of something, if the client after purchase charges the NFT from the platform where it is originally minted, to remove the percentage that was meant to be. It's, so we're running into this issue as far as creator royalties on the Looks Rare, right? The fact that Looks Rare didn't wasn't giving away creative royalties. As far as I understand it, lots of times these royalties are actually in the smart contract on the NFT itself. So if you sell it, it automatically goes to you. It automatically goes to that person. You don't need to show, like, you don't need to, whoever, if you buy it on Looks Rare or you buy it on Rarible or on OpenSea or anywhere else, doesn't matter. The money automatically goes to you. Now, if you don't have that in your contract, if you're using like an OpenSea contract, um, which is as I understand it, isn't set up that way where it automatically goes to you as a part of like the automatic transaction smart contract, then I don't know. I think you probably approach that person, uh, that uh, that that marketplace, and reach an agreement with them. But I've never run into that issue personally, where the creator wasn't. I know the issue's running up. I know that that's something that's coming up pretty frequently, especially with all these different marketplaces coming up with Looks Rare and Rarible and OpenSea, and there's Coinbase is coming. So there's going to be more marketplaces opening up, and that's going to be an issue that comes up. I just personally don't know the answer to that. So, and then I think that was all I had. So if anyone has any questions or wants to come up and ask a question verbally or type into the whiteboard, let me know. But otherwise, it's great talking to you all. And if you guys have any questions, you want to shoot me a DM, I'll stay around in the Club Berlin Discord. So you can find me, or you can always message me on Twitter at Burdnels NFT. So should be able to answer anything on there as well.
Thank you so much. That was so interesting.
Yes, it was very amazing. Thank you. Yes, maybe we can write down your website link on the whiteboard.
Yeah, I'll throw
And
my website and my Twitter onto the whiteboard so anyone can access those guys and find me. And like I said, if you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to shoot me a message, or if you want in like a month
can
when
you
it comes out.
write it again? I have it not right now. Sorry. Would be cool when you can write it into the whiteboard
Yeah,
chat.
yeah. Let me find it. Let me find those links real quick.
Perfect. All right. Then I stop now the recording.